Welcome to Down Earth Astrology and Primal Girl Wellness. This is part of the Astrology Investigates series, and this is for the escape of Danelo Souza Cavalcante from Chester County Prison on August 31st at 2023. The reported time of his escape is 8:30, although I am having some questions about the accuracy of that time. We'll discuss that in the second part of this video. So in this video, is basically asking the questions, where is he now and how did he escape? How did he do it? So this is a speculative inquiry with astrology, and we are going to wait after the video to see where and how and all sorts of good stuff so we can autopsy the chart. For those of you who are interested in comparing the actual results of where he is finally found and captured and any information we get about his actual escape, compared to the information we're presenting through astrology with this video, come back and check the comments section because I will be updating and autopsying the charts after he's captured. Then I won't be making a new video. We'll just put all this together in the comments. All right, let's get started. Alrighty, so for those of you who saw the first video, and if you did not, there will be a link at the end of this video as well as a link to it in the description box so you can find it. We did a chart based on the sighting on someone's home surveillance camera, and it was believed to be him. So we set up a chart using that time, day and time, to see if we can get any information about where he might be. Now, I'm putting this up. This is an image from the surveillance cam that's all over the internet. And I'm putting this up because there's apparently a lot of different times being posted for when this image was captured, but this is from the actual surveillance cam. So the chart I have set up is for 12:01 a.m., not 1:44 a.m., not 12:30 a.m., or whatever other weird times are popping up on the internet. So I wanted to put that out there so we're all on the same page with why we're using the 12:01 a.m. time. And in brief, we're going to recap what we said in the other previous video, and that is with this particular chart, and I believe this is going to be useful. I could be wrong. We have Gemini rising, so and it's conjunct Regal, the fixed star Regal. So the thing about it is Gemini and Mercury in particular, rules fugitives and runaways. Gemini in particular typically describes lean or youthful looking people, small-ish people, sometimes tall, but definitely lean, and elfin, and elfin in appearance. With Gemini rising, Mercury will rule the chart. Mercury is retrograde in Virgo, which further emphasizes this pixie-ish or elfin kind of appearance. And with Mercury retrograde, this absolutely shows us someone who is trying to back out of a situation, which he's definitely doing. Now, with Regal rising on the ascendant, what this will also tell me, your mileage may vary, so just work with me here. Regal rising ascendant tells me that there would be some success with whatever endeavor was occurring at this time. In this particular case, would be his escape. And also, too, interestingly, Mercury and Regal on the ascendant coming up like this will give you a lot of very finely developed dexterity. So he may actually be very good at picking locks. There's a thought. Picking locks and technical stuff, like really good with technical things. So I'm not sure if that's true or not. And we those of us who are not in the prison system and familiar with him and his little quirks may never know that. But this is what this tells me. Now, with Mercury retrograde in Virgo down in that fourth house, this suggests to me also that he is at ground level, which in the surveillance cam we can see is definitely ground level. Mercury is in the terms of Jupiter, which, if I can get a pen here, right here. Mercury's in terms of Jupiter. Jupiter rules the great outdoors. It also rules money and wealth, and he's definitely in a very affluent or wealthy area, and he's definitely outdoors. So these things together, to me, indicate that this is a useful or radical chart. And again, like using the chart based on speculated sightings is not how you should be doing these things. If we use the terms of the planets, the ascendant, which would be him because he's the person taking the action, is in terms of Venus, which would indicate somebody who's either very attractive or very fair and feminine, softer, right? Softer appearance. And he could easily, if he wanted to, he could easily cross-dress as a woman and get away with it and actually be a very attractive woman. Because he is very, well, I don't know how fair-skinned he is, but he does have a very Venusian sort of appearance and these big doe eyes, right? So if he wanted to, he could literally dress and imitate a woman and probably walk around and get away that way because everybody's looking for a man, not a little female. Anyway, so that's that. Now, if we look at Venus, since the ascendant is in the terms of Venus, if we look at the position of Venus, we're looking at it right here, and we're going to see if that gives us any information. So Venus is near Juno, and it's in the term of Mercury. So this Mercury also rules siblings, right? And Juno represents in-laws. So it is entirely possible that he, for somehow, some way, some reason, is hooked into or trying to make connection with, because again, here's that Jupiter, right? With an in-law or a sibling. Now, I just heard today that he apparently does have two siblings that live in the area. One is from Chester County. It's there in King of Prussia. I think that's north and west. I have to double check that. But the one sibling I believe is in King of Prussia. The other one is somewhere around Kennett Square, maybe? I'm not sure. But so that would make sense and certainly support this, that he's trying to make contact or connection with an in-law. It could be somebody who's married into the family. Now, the thing to remember, too, is that we're talking about in-laws, either currently or, divorced in-laws. This is not necessarily someone that the law enforcement would be looking at. They would be looking at the direct siblings, but not necessarily the in-laws. And the other thing, too, is you don't have to be of the same ethnocentricity to marry a person. So it's entirely possible that if there is, in fact, an in-law, that they may very well be Caucasian or Black or Asian or, pick an ethnicity that's not Brazilian, Portuguese, or Hispanic. So this may be someone that he would be gravitating towards specifically because that's not who law enforcement would immediately start looking for, but he would still have a connection to. Okay. Also, too, let's see. So his ruler Mercury is in that fourth. It is trining Uranus, which is the ruler of the 10th, which suggests to me, and it's in the 12th house, which suggests to me that he's actually hiding in plain sight. So he's literally right there under their very noses, which also suggests that he never actually got out of the local area, or he won't get out of the local area before he's caught. Now, Mercury separates from Jupiter, so that's the outdoors, right? And it's applying to Uranus. And this all involves the 10th house. And the 10th house, the midhaven, is in the terms of Jupiter. So my feeling or impression looking at this is that he is going to be inside a building. He will not be outdoors all the time forever. He's actually going to be inside a building and like some type of work environment, right? Barns, grain storage, maybe banks, but maybe not so much banks. Art studios, right? Converted art studios. What else? Yeah, anywhere there's work being done. Now, the other thing I wanted to point out, and I think I said this in the other videos, he looks Hispanic. And for people, especially in the Westchester area where it's largely new money with some old money mixed in and almost 90% Caucasian, right? And these are not people who spend time, unless they travel as tourists, they're not spending a lot of time with people that look different from themselves. So for them, everybody that doesn't look like them kind of all looks alike. And that's a phenomenon everybody does. It's not just Caucasians. We all have that kind of blinder when it comes to people that are different from ourselves if we never actually get out of our environments. So the thing about it is he could easily pass for Hispanic. And again, I was saying in the other video, with Mexicans and Central Americans, a lot of them are not very tall. They tend to run on the short side. A lot of it having to do with lack of protein in childhood and genetics and all this sort of stuff. So he could easily blend in with the Hispanic population wherever he's traveling. Now, my understanding I just read recently also is that he does speak fluent Portuguese. He does speak Spanish and he does speak some English, but he's not fluent in it. So it absolutely would make it easy for him to blend in with Hispanic communities in the area, which often have a lot of illegal or not correctly documented people working in these farm environments, right, where you have barns and grain storage and all that sort of stuff. And if he infiltrates those communities, nobody's going to turn him in, because they would be caught between a rock and a hard place. Either I get murdered by this guy for turning him in, or I get deported, or both, right? So that's really kind of an icky situation to find yourself in. So that may be where he ends up before this is over, because there's a lot of wealthy white folks who hire farmhands if they have farms, or horses, right? Which is also Jupiter, by the way. Jupiter rules horses, and we're seeing a lot of Jupiter emphasis in here. It's right here, right? Horses and horse farms are also in that area as well. So they hire a lot of Hispanic and immigrants and migrants to come and work their farms, right, and their stables. And I'm sure they don't pay that much attention to who's working for them. They would recognize them, but not necessarily that closely, because people. Anyway, so there's that. Now, the other thing that I was looking at this chart, just briefly, that I thought was interesting is right here, right? So here, this looks like a gunshot. The moon in Aries is in the terms of Mars, and Mars, Aries and Mars both are symbolic of guns and wounds, right? Gunshots. The North Node and Chiron in Aries, these are, well, the North Node is an opening, if we want to go there. And also what we're not showing in this chart is Eris, the goddess of discord, is right there. Sorry about my handwriting. With the North Node, between the North Node and the moon. So this would not be an easy surrender. Not that the moon in Aries would ever surrender in the first place, but this absolutely ensures a violent confrontation. With Chiron there, of course, wounds, and Chiron in Aries suggests the possibility of a head wound, getting shot in the head. Ooh, right? Now, so, and we're speculating, because that's what it looks like to me. And this is further reinforced by the square to Pluto in the 8th house of death. So Pluto retrograde in Capricorn would represent law enforcement and the powers that be, because that's Capricorn, and that is definitely Pluto. With its moon, Eris, North Node, and Chiron stellium squaring Pluto, this would suggest, again, gunshot wounds, and possibly gunshot wounds to the head, right? Which would definitely be end of life sort of stuff. The other thing, the reason I'm thinking this is going to be a gunshot wound and law enforcement will be responsible for it, not one of the community members, because that's going to be law enforcement that does this, is because the 6th house rules law enforcement and beat cops, right? Boots on the ground sort of stuff. Scorpio rules this house. Pluto is the ruler of Scorpio, and that absolutely ties in this Moon-Pluto square. So it may be law enforcement that gets a shot to the head, and that will be the end of the manhunt for our friend. All right. Now, the other thing, too, is I was looking at 5 days from the date of this chart. So September 3rd, 2023, 5 days is going to take us to September 8th, which, since he disappeared on August 31st, makes that a considerable amount of time to be on the run. And I was a little surprised by that as well. So again, I could be wrong, but if I am right, this looks like it will be 5 days from the 3rd, which would be September 8th, before he is caught or apprehended or killed, which will make it officially 9 whole days before he's captured, which seems really unbelievable considering he's in a small bedroom community of, wealthy people with lots of surveillance cameras everywhere, all that sort of stuff. The other thing, too, is that the direction he appeared to be heading when I looked at the chart is south by west. And the last reports I heard, and looking at the maps, he was, in fact, heading south by west from the prison. But I think he's going to be moving south by west from his last seen location in Pocopson, Pennsylvania, or Pocopson County, which is actually going to put him right in the direction of Kennett Square and Oxford, which has a lot of migrant and immigrant Hispanic people that work the local farms in the area. And there's a lot of mushroom farms in that area, for those of you who are not from this area. So we've got horses and mushrooms, big money makers in these areas, and these people absolutely hire legal and illegal immigrants to work those farms and jobs. I mean, they'll tell you they don't, but they're lying. You know, just like nobody's growing pot inside those mushroom houses. And yeah, no, we're not doing that, and they would be lying about that too. So, listen, I'm just saying. I'm just saying. And it also looks like, based on my notes from the other chart, it looks like he was actually almost caught by law enforcement on the day before we did this chart. So on September 2nd, it looks like there was a near miss with law enforcement. They may not even realize how close they were to him. Now, some things to consider is if he is in fact in an area where there's horses, right? Or, I don't know, unusual livestock or something like that, the animals will warn him that people are approaching. So he'll get a huge head start on anybody seeing him because the animals will be disturbed. They'll know somebody's coming and something's not right. So that's like an early detection alarm system right there, is being around the horses. And I would imagine he's comfortable around animals. Or if you're there long enough, I guess the animals just calm down and get used to you being there. So some of the other things is, it looks like, again, there's a possibility of being on a farm. I really think it's gonna be on a farm or some type of place where there's an extra work building on the property that's not lived in. It's used for other things. And this may, if it is a farm, it may be a farm where they also have unusual livestock like llamas. Llamas. So, and also too, and I said it in the other video, it looks like there's an old dried up well or some other mechanical apparatus that transports water or fluid and that is no longer functioning on the property. So we'll see. We'll see. Some other pertinent things you guys need to know about this character is he is 5 foot tall and 120 pounds. He is the size of a lawn gnome or a garden gnome. So it's very, very easy for him to slip in and out of tight spaces. And to basically not be seen. Short people are not as visible as you think they are. As a short person myself, it's very easy for people to literally look past you. So let's move on to the next slide. Okay, so here are the charts for the reported time of his escape from the prison, according to the authorities, and what I think, this is my estimated time he might have actually escaped. I'm struggling with the 8:30 a.m. time that they're giving the public because, and that's the reported time on the left, because at 8:30 a.m., that's going to put 1 Libra, like less than 3 degrees rising on the ascendant, which is very, very early. And this would suggest that this, obviously brand new beginnings, all sort of stuff, but it's also a little premature. The more important thing here, rather than the degree on the ascendant, is that Mars is at 2. So the ascendant and Mars are separated by 1 degree with the ascendant applying the Mars. This would indicate that within the hour, right, or the day, almost immediately, certainly no more than 24 hours later, or like 1 hour after he tried to escape, there would have been some type of obstruction or somebody standing in his way. There's no way he would have successfully left that building or whatever he was trying to do with Mars and the ascendant coming together so quickly. Also, too, Mars would rule that 7th house of other people. So certainly there should have been or would have been a confrontation, an open confrontation that would have been an obstacle and blocked him from succeeding in his efforts. This is the way I'm reading the chart. Obviously, I could be wrong, but this is why I'm having an issue with this. Based on what I know about astrology, this doesn't create the picture that makes any sense here. His ruler, in this case, would be Venus, and Venus is over here, right, in the 11th house, and it is squaring Jupiter, and again, more obstacles, right? So there's not a lot here to indicate successful outcomes for the action being taken. I don't see it. And also, too, going back to this 1st house, this Mars, right, ruling the 7th, look at this. The vertex is right there opposing the vertex on that 7th house cusp. There's no way, if this were the actual time he left the grounds, right, at 8:30, there's no way he would have successfully escaped. I just don't believe it. So I say that they're guessing at what time he left. And based on what we know about him and the escape, which is very little, I'm going to go with 8:10 a.m. So I don't imagine he escaped much before 8:30 a.m. There had to be some type of change of shift or some type of routine, like in and out from the building. So he had to have been ferried out of the grounds by some type of external something, because the gates would have had to open for a truck or something for him to either pass through physically or to pass through as part of carriage or things being transported away from the prison. That's the only way he would have gotten off those grounds. So with that said, we know that they run like clockwork. There's a specific time that these things are happening, deliveries and loading and unloading. They don't randomly show up, and it's not like people don't know they're coming. So that's probably why they're using the 8:30 a.m. They're guessing, but I'm going to say it's probably 8:10 when he actually got out. So if this is the case, and it was actually 8:10 when he escaped, the first thing we're looking at is here, 27 degrees rising. That means literally this was a last chance effort. Like, talk about narrowly escaping, right? And you're only going to get one. When you've got late degrees rising like this, you only get one shot to do it. And oftentimes these things are futile, right? They just don't go anywhere. And in this particular case, it would be true because he's going to get caught. So the attempt to escape will literally not go anywhere because he'll get caught. Okay, now with that said, so we still have Mars in the first house, right? Mars is in the term of Saturn. With Mars in that first house, though, it's not dead on the ascendant. So we've got some time before that obstacle comes into play. In this particular case, it's a difference of 5, 27, 28, 29, 0, 1, 2, like 5 degrees-ish, right? Which is going to put us into September 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, September 5th, which is tomorrow from the date of this video, when we might see some, again, another close call or a sighting, or maybe even getting captured, right? Because I'm saying 9 days, but it could be 7 to 9 days, give or take 24 hours. But that Mars will come into play on the the 5th. The 5th. Okay. Now, again, because we have 27 rising, this means that Virgo rules the chart. So now we're back to Mercury being his ruler, which is also in keeping conveniently with the ruler we have for the sighting on the camera on that person's property. Mercury's in the 12th house. It is retrograde, right? It makes perfect sense. We've got a fugitive. Mercury rules fugitive. The 12th house rules prisons and escapees. And it's retrograde. This is definitely somebody who's hiding. And also, again, look, there's this emphasis on Saturn here, right? Mercury's in terms of Saturn. So this would be somebody who's traveling alone, also possibly somebody who's technically proficient or very good with mechanical things, and again, Mercury, Virgo, locksmithing, lock picking, that sort of stuff. And also, too, Virgo, Mercury, somebody who is elfin in appearance, slight, lean, small, petite, bird-like features, bird-like build, and that absolutely describes him. With Mercury as the ruler for him in the 12th house, this also, and see, this is what I'm saying, this also goes back to this business about being not a master of disguise, but easily able to pass as something he's not, right? Or someone else, for instance, a woman. So they may be running around looking for a man. In reality, before this is over, he may be running around traveling looking like a woman. All he's got to do is shave off his facial hair, and dress differently and do something with his hair, right? If even, and he could easily walk around looking like a 15-year-old girl. Okay, so now what else? Now also too, when we change this and we get 27 Virgo rising, right, in terms of Mars, right, which is right here, so we know this 5 days. So maybe it's not 9, maybe it's 5, maybe it will be September 5th when he gets caught or he runs into problems. Okay. Neptune is also in the term of Mars, and Neptune is right there on the descendant on the other side. So with Neptune on the descendant, this also suggests, because remember, Neptune is, not Neptune, I'm sorry, the 7th house are your open enemies, your competitors, your legal partners, people that you're not enemies with. and people who would confront you, right? So it's, me versus you, us versus them. The first house is me and us. The seventh house is you and them. So the seventh house could absolutely represent law enforcement, right? And the people searching for him, and with Neptune there and Neptune is retrograde, this could absolutely describe the confusion and the blind spots that are happening as they're looking for this character who just seems to have vanished into thin air, right? Master of disguise and illusion, like a magician. Here I am, then I'm gone. So there is that. Now, the sixth house we know rules law enforcement, right? So the law enforcement is ruled by Pisces because Pisces is on that sixth house cusp. And again, Neptune sits dead on that seventh house cusp, opposing him, or the ascendant, which would represent him. And Neptune is in the term of Mars, okay, which is here in the first house, suggesting that when this Mars gets activated, right, in 5 days, right around the 5th, that this is when law enforcement should finally get out of their own way and have their aha moment and catch him. So we're going to watch this date, September 5th, give or take a day, right? Maybe as far as September 6th. All right. And also, too, again, that would show the confusion and the blind spots. It's not that they're not good at their jobs. It's just that this is not as simple and straightforward a process as it would seem, and Neptune gives you blind spots. Sometimes you're looking for things when you should be looking for something else, like maybe a woman, or maybe inside buildings, which also represents another issue for law enforcement, because I don't know what the laws are, but I'm pretty sure that you cannot just randomly let yourself into people's houses, or places of work if they're not there to let you in. Unless you have a search warrant, and you can't get a random search warrant without cause, which means that they can't randomly go into various houses around the neighborhoods where people are away on vacation and let themselves in. And they can't get a warrant because those people have done nothing wrong. So that may be an issue too, and that's where some of these blind spots are coming in with that Neptune on the 7th and law enforcement. Now, with this particular chart, with the estimated time of the escape, I thought this was interesting as well. Vesta is on the midheaven, again in the term of Mars. So Mars is very active in this chart. With Vesta at the top of this chart, and Vesta also makes an exact square to Neptune. So again, law enforcement, right? Blind spots, things that they're not seeing. So I don't know in this particular case if this has to do with law enforcement and our search for him, because remember, this is the chart for the escape itself. But I think this may actually tell us how he escaped. There's something interesting, right? So I'm going to go out on a limb here, and I'm going to say if this does show us how he made his escape, what I'm seeing is this. So Mercury's in term of Saturn, right? Vesta's on the midheaven. The moon is right here in that 6th house between Saturn and Neptune. And what that suggests to me is he escaped by literally hiding or disguising himself in the garbage or the laundry, right? So, or whatever it is that's part of the daily routines and things that need to physically leave the building, like the refuse. They can't let the garbage pile up. It's got to go out. And I'm pretty sure they do laundry in-house, but maybe they don't. Maybe they send their laundry out. Maybe there's some forms of laundry that get sent out and away and brought back in. I don't know. But this would appear to be it. So Mercury in the terms of Saturn, Saturn represents refuse and garbage and also structure. So it would have been a container that he would have hidden in, because that's the 12th house, right? So it could have been anything from a laundry bin to the inside of a laundry box, some type of physical structure. He didn't physically walk out or fly over the fence. He physically hid inside a physical structure that houses refuse or waste or things that need to be discarded, okay? With Vesta on the midheaven, this suggests, again, work and hygiene. Vesta is the goddess of hygiene. So again, this suggests to me either refuse or laundry or, medical stuff that has to go out. But I don't know the inside of the prison and how the daily operations work. But with this, I would look for the daily operations. And I'm sure they're looking for it too. I mean, it makes sense that this would be one of the avenues of escape. So I'm sure they're looking for that as well. But this specifically to me looks like things that we get rid of or discard that have to do with hygiene and housekeeping. Okay. Now, the 6th house is a Virgo house, and it also has to do with hygiene and housekeeping, right? And with a moon here between Saturn and Neptune in that 6th house, Saturn again is refuse, things that we discard, okay? And Neptune also is refuse and things that we throw away or we don't pay attention to because it has no value to us. Castaways, throwaways, and things that you get rid of all come under the auspices of Neptune. So it is possible, and it's all in Pisces, right? So that moon is moving between Saturn and Neptune, and I'm not completely sure this isn't medical waste. Interesting. So that is my suspicion about how he got out. He managed to house himself inside of something that has to do with hygiene. And I'm going to even go as far as to say medical refuse, right? Because you definitely can't keep that inside there either. Now, the question, of course, becomes, did he have help, right? So, maybe, I don't know, let's take a look, right? So we're guessing, this is all new, right? So let's consider easy aspects to his ruler Mercury and also the moon representing the event. So with Mercury in sextile to Venus, there is the possibility that he had some assist because Venus is also in terms of Mercury, right? And Venus is retrograde in Leo, so this may have been somebody with misguided efforts and or somebody who owed him a favor or owed a family member a favor. So there's a debt being paid here, at least partway through this process. We don't really have a lot of other helpful aspects to Mercury, so that's pretty much it. It was just a one-time little piece of a deal, like, okay, I'm going to do this one thing, and then you're on your own after that. So I'm guessing there may actually have been some assist, at least through part of this, just a debt being paid, kind of turning a blind eye sort of stuff without actually helping people. If the moon rules the event, right, the moon has moved away from Saturn and moves towards Neptune, which rules the 7th house. So the last aspect the moon made in its own sign, no less, would have been to Saturn. And Saturn is ruled by this intercepted 4th. So again, this is somebody inside the house, right, or inside the prison that he would have had some type of connection to or made a connection with, right? And look at this. Pluto, which is inside the house, which represents the inside the prison, somebody inside the prison system, is making a grand trine, okay, to Jupiter and Uranus and his ruler. So again, I think it was a one-off deal. I think it was a debt being paid or a favor that needed to be repaid. And it may literally just have been a matter of distracting somebody or getting them to move or look to the left or whatever kind of thing while he jumped into a bin. So the moon, of course, is in Pisces, and it's applying to Neptune in the chart ruling the event. And I don't know that this necessarily describes who is helping, but definitely, again, the 6th house represents employees, the workforce, and the 4th house is in-house. So this absolutely would have been staff. This would have been somebody who was employed in the prison that was of assistance to this, whether they were aware of what was happening or not. And apparently there's a big thing with this prison. The old, I forget what the name of the job is, but the person running it abruptly resigned. There's no explanation why, just that he suddenly resigned and got replaced by someone who was appointed to his job in the interim, who has zero experience running prisons and no qualifications. So literally it's a good old boy network gimme job where it's a friend of a friend got the job. And anybody who's over the age of 18, 20, that has worked in places where people get their jobs because they know somebody or they're related to somebody or it's a friend of a friend, we all know how badly that goes every single time, regardless of industry. People need to be hired by merit, not relationship, but you can't tell people anything, so this is what we end up with. But think about all the situations you've ever been in where you've worked with people who got their job because they were a friend of a friend or they were related to somebody, and remember how badly they were running things. And this appears to be the same situation we're finding ourselves in here in the Chester County Prison, which, by the way, Chester County politics is as bad as Moscow, Idaho. So there's that to consider. And that may be part of why we ended up in this mess in the first place, because people are, getting their jobs, not based on merit, but because, you know, they're buddies with somebody. Anyway. Okay, and by the way, this is this is Danelo Souza Cavalcante. See, and if you look, like he could, if you could picture it, shave off all of the facial hair, let the hair grow out a little bit long, or you put a wig on him, put some makeup on him, he could absolutely pass as a pretty girl. Absolutely. And also, too, you know, whatever his ethnicity is, he definitely looks like he could pass for Hispanic, right? I don't know that he is Hispanic. He's from Brazil, and typically people in Brazil are Brazilian or Portuguese. So I don't know what the difference is, but he could certainly just lose himself in local Hispanic communities who, even if they knew who they were, maybe in a double bind and a catch-22, because if you turn him in, he's going to kill you. If you don't turn him in, you know, you got a killer walking around with you, right? And then you get in trouble for not saying anything. Or you turn him in and you don't get killed, but then you get deported, right? Oh my God. So, and I'm sure he's aware of that too. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out how that works. Okay, so here's the chart again, right? And his ruler is Mercury. We've got 27 Virgo rising on the chart. Mercury is in the term of Saturn. Mars is in the first house, also in the term of Saturn. So Saturn comes up very, very prominently here. If you look, Saturn is opposing the moon, or the moon. The Saturn is opposing the sun from the 6th and 12th house. This looks like absolutely some obstruction, and certainly law enforcement catching up with him in about 4. We've got a span of like 4 to 9 days here. So this is August 31st, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th. So that's going to be, today is Monday, so that's today. That's today. So something important should be happening today. The Sun and Saturn are both in the terms of Venus. Venus is in the term of Mercury, which is his ruler. I know we're like all over the place like a pinball machine right now. So again, there should be some unexpected turn of events happening today, Monday. So we'll keep an eye out for that. And the 7th house is again in the term of Saturn. Mars is there. Mars in the term of Saturn in the first house. Yada yada yada. Like he's only successful in leaving the actual physical prison. He will not be successful in physically like escaping like the prison permanently. If he survives, I think he's going to get killed. But if he survives, he's not going to end up back in prison. So it's not technically an actual successful endeavor. The midhaven again is in term of Mars. The 4th house, which rules the end of the matter, also in the term of Mars. We've got heavy Mars activity in this chart, and the moon, of course, squares Vesta. So blah blah blah. We went over this last video, but all this to say that this is not going to go the way he's hoping it will. And again, today, Monday, there should be some unexpected turn of events. So let's keep an eye on that. Okay, and these are the two charts. Now on the left side it says Cavalier Escape. It should say Cavalcante. Sorry, typo. And on the right is the actual escape. So on the left is the estimated time and the date of his escape from Chester County Prison, and on the right is the sighting on the surveillance cam that we picked up later. So I'm trying to see if there was anything that is consistent between the two charts to kind of connect the two of them together that makes sense. And what we get is, get a good pen here. So the first thing is in both charts, we're going to get Mercury ruling the ascendant. Okay, so Mercury ruled, which makes perfect sense because again, if he were any more Mercury appearing, Gemini, Mercury, Virgo appearing, he looks elfin for God's sakes. He's the size of a lawn ornament. This guy could literally, talking about being a master of disguise, he's so little, at 5 foot and 120 pounds, he could stand in front of somebody's house holding a lantern, pretending to be a lawn ornament, and people would walk by not realizing it's an actual person. I'm just saying. Okay, so there was that, and again, the moon, our sun, Saturn in the escape chart, right? It's, this is 4 days, which is going to take us to today, Monday, when something happens, some turn of event or something. And again, let's see, 4th, 5th, 3, 4, 5. And again, also over here, it was the same thing. We were looking at 4 to 5 days for something. Give me a second, I'll try and find it again. So if we look here, the moon and Pluto are in square in about 5 days, 5 degrees, right? But in order for us to get to, what do we say here? 3 days, 4 days. 4 days from the 31st, which is going to take us to 9/4 or 9/5, which is today, right? And then to bring it here, because this is September 3rd, this would have to be 2 to 3 days, 2 days out, 1 to 2 days out. And here, in 2 days from the 3rd, which will take us to September 5th, we've got the moon in the north node coming to exact conjunction, which is absolutely going to talk about opening up, putting holes in things, should bring us some term event. So today is the 5th. The only astrologer I know doesn't know what day of the week it is. No, I'm sorry, today's the 4th. So tomorrow is the 5th. So tomorrow, by tomorrow, there should be some turn of events that really brings this home. And again, 6, 7, 8, 9, by 9/9, which is a long time, because that's an extra 4 days. From here, we should have complete resolution of the matter, right? Yeah. Because that's going to be 5, 4, and 5. 4 and 5. Yeah, because Lilith here is at 2. It's going to take us to the 5th. And well, 4 and 5, 4 and 5 days. It's going to be the Sun, Mercury there. And that's also going to be the Sun, Jupiter there coming out of that 4th house, which is the end of the matter. So yeah, he'll be caught this week, but we're looking at September. I'm going to say tomorrow, not today, because it's the 5th. I thought today was the 5th. And then complete resolution by the 9th. So we will see. We will see. And as soon as we have more information, we will revisit this and autopsy these charts in the comments section. So stay tuned. And that is it, my friends. Hope you enjoyed the video. So we're learning together as we go along, which is awesome. Absolutely, if you have thoughts or ideas or comments, put them in the comment section below. Let's have a talk about this, because that's how we learn, by discussing things. And if you enjoyed this, please consider liking, subscribing, or commenting to help support the channel. And with that, let's watch the news and see how this unfolds. Oh, and for those of you who have been following along or have not been following along with like one eyeball with the Idaho 4 out in Moscow, Idaho, I said back in February, I think Bryan Kohberger is going to walk on a technicality, and I don't believe he did it. I really don't believe he did it. And right now as we speak, everything is falling apart like a domino is being tossed across the table, because yeah, it's becoming more and more painfully obvious that this poor guy is being set up. He's literally being framed for all the reasons I talked about, I'm sure, in the previous videos. So if you haven't seen them, you might want to go back and watch some of the videos for that case and then see what's going on these days. Interesting stuff. All right, talk to you later.